Hello, good evening, everyone. My name is Lila. I'm the events manager and a co-owner at Porter Square Books. Thank you so much for joining us for tonight's virtual talk with Rickie Lee Jones for Last Chance Texaco, joined in conversation by Doug Lockwood. And we're so glad to have you all here. So if you don't know us already, Porter Square Books is an independent and employee-owned bookstore located here in Cambridge, Massachusetts on the traditional lands of the Wampanoag people. We're open every day for browsing from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. with Cafe Zing, cafe, open 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. as well. Or our website is also open 24/7, and we have curbside pickup, local delivery, and multiple shipping options nationwide. So it's been a very long and strange year, and while we can't wait to gather in person, being here with you all virtually for an hour, it means a lot to us. So on that note, I want to thank you all again for being here, and please do consider joining us again. We have tons of fantastic virtual events happening all spring long. Tomorrow night, we've got Emily Henry with the Boston Globe Love Letters columnist Meredith Goldstein for Emily's new rom-com, People We Meet on Vacation, or I'll just shout out one other event. It's next Thursday, the 20th, with Maggie Doherty and Miranda Popke for the paperback release of The Equivalents, which was finalist for the National Book Critics Circle Award. It's really just such a beautiful work of nonfiction on 5 women artists in the 60s and their friendship. So thought maybe it would resonate with some of you as well. So please do check us out at portersquarebooks.com, and hopefully we'll see you again. So I just have a few quick housekeeping notes, and then I promise we're going to get to the good stuff tonight. First of all, this event is going to be recorded for you to rewatch. It'll be available for you right here at the same link, so you can watch it later if you need to leave early for whatever reason. Many of you have already discovered this lovely chat window on the bottom right of your screen where it says "Say Something Nice." So please do say hi. Let us know where you're watching from. Of course, we do expect you to keep it respectful, and we reserve the right to remove anybody who does not maintain that standard. Right next to that little chat box down at the bottom of your screen, you'll see the words "Ask a Question," and you can type in there any questions that you might have for Rickie tonight, and we'll try to fit in as many of those as we can at the end of the evening. Finally, as you all know, a copy of Last Chance Texaco with a signed book plate is included in your ticket purchase this evening. I believe all but a handful of you have had your books shipped out or prepared for pickup already. The remainder of those orders are being filled this evening and tomorrow, so you'll have your book very soon, if not currently in your hand. But should you be so moved to pick up another copy, which you just might, for a friend or family member, or even yourself, we don't judge, you can pick up another copy just by clicking on the screen button that's right below me that says "Order another copy of Last Chance Texaco." Now we have a handful of book plates left over, just a few, so we can't guarantee that you'll get another copy with a book plate, but if we can, we will. Okay, so thank you everybody for bearing with me through those notes. We're really about to get started now, I promise. It's my pleasure to introduce Rickie Lee Jones, who really needs very little introduction, here to tell us tonight about her new memoir, Last Chance Texaco, which has gotten rave reviews all over. The Washington Post called it a raw and roving life story, and Matthew Gilbert of the Boston Globe wrote, "Jones carries her originality, intimacy, and volcanic expressiveness into book form. It is a vivid trip. The book only adds breadth to her mythology." Rickie Lee Jones has released 17 record albums and received 2 Grammy Awards, and she lives in New Orleans. She's joined tonight by Doug Lockwood. Doug is Associate Professor of Acting at the Boston Conservatory at Berkeley. He's also a founding member of the Actors Shakespeare Project, as well as at the ART, New Rep, and Wheelock Family Theaters. And in 2014, Doug devised a musical based on the music and lyrics of Rickie Lee Jones called Coolsville, which was performed on the main stage at the Boston Conservatory at Berkeley. So we're incredibly excited to have him joining us this evening. It's going to be a really fantastic talk. So a big thank you to Rickie Lee Jones and Doug for being here, as well as our partners at Grove, and of course, all of you in the audience. So without further ado, I'm going to stop talking now, and here we go. Thanks everybody again for being here.
Thanks, Lila. Rickie, I just wanted to start by saying it's truly an honor to be able to have this time with you as the artist who's just had the deepest impact on my life. Your concerts, your albums, I just wanted to make sure you knew that before we get to the book. Congratulations on this incredible book. the title, Last Chance Texaco, I was reading about in the book, you talk about the process of writing that particular song.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing you said was when you wrote the song Last Chance Texaco, which is from your first album, that it was like a thing already whole. There was no struggle bringing the vision of this place into existence. And I know the book has taken a bit longer to bring into existence. But at one point, I read something recently where you said the book began to write me. And I wondered if there was a relationship between the song and the book in that way, or if you could just talk a little bit more about what that means, the book began to write me.
Well, first I'll talk about what I said about the songs, that it was a whole place waiting. So I think it's like this with most of the songs, even if they're not totally finished, they're already rooms waiting. But when you write your first record, if you get to do that, you've had your whole life to prepare those rooms to enter. So the Last Chance Texaco is made of all those Sunday drives with my father and mother out into the desert, and all those big Coke freezers that had no ice in them, and the tarantulas and scorpions in the aquariums for a dime, and all the things that were unique to growing up in the desert. All the road trips, all the running out of gas. That story in Texaco, we ran out of gas, and now the cables don't reach, happened to me more than once. I just wanted to say that they are rooms. They are architectural to me, the songs. That's the best word. That's not the right word, because while they're rooms, they're also spirits, but they're intact and always the same. They never change. So in that way, they're like places or people. So when the second part, when the book starts to write me, probably always was writing me. But at some point, there's an exchange with the book. I'm not just putting down the stories of my family and trying to construct an interesting overall story that's not just the little stories. Because at first I was just going to, like Richard Price, I'll write these little stories. Richard Price wrote The Wanderers. And if there was any one book that I used, it was The Wanderers, because some of the stories are 3 pages, some of them are 20, some of them are funny, some of them are horrific. But they're all in this same place and same time. So that was how I started the book, but I quickly left that. And then I went, I'll give them song titles. So there was an evolution that as I found my way to how to tell the story. But once I'd put it all down and was looking at it, I began to have a sense of myself and my family that was more or different than what I had when I started. And it's a kind of grace. I don't want to say these things for PR, because when you say them that way, then the next time you say it, it echoes as if it's not true or shallow. But for sure, the book showed me that I'm an optimistic person. And so that was the word I used. But then I read this quote from Bill Flanagan, who's a writer. And Bill Flanagan said, "Rickie Lee Jones has sex in a utility shed, and she walks out and says, 'What a dream I had, dressed in organdy, clothed in crinoline.' And nobody ever, I get goosebumps, nobody ever showed me myself so clearly as that one statement. That I didn't see a utility shed. I saw all the beautiful things in the world. That's who I am. I might not have ever seen it if I didn't write the book. I would have thought I was kind of depressed and blah, 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 but that's not who I am at all. So.
Well, that's lovely. It seems like the book, in that sense, the book taught you something or showed you something. I've read the book a few times now, and there are lots of themes in it. And I realized the other day that the same themes, three main themes for me anyway, that are also the same themes I think that keep me coming back to all of your records and keep me coming to your live shows over the years, over the 33 years that I've known your music. And for me, those ones are family. And by that, I mean the good, the bad, and the ugly of what family is. And integrity. And by that, I mean, there are some specific moments of that we'll hopefully get to in the book of where you show just this unbelievable depth of integrity. And also I was thinking about the integrity for me of your career and just the way that you have stayed true to the path that you are on. And to me, that shows unbelievable integrity. And then the third theme for me is magic. And magic means a lot of things in the book. There's an embrace of mystery and your imagination. You seem to have the ability to tell the future. You have these premonitions throughout your life, mostly for the good. Sometimes there's one kind of dark premonition that does come true as well. Magic also, for me, stands for this deep faith that it seems to me that you have in the invisible world, and mostly also for this ability that you have to leave space for the spectator, for the reader, for the person listening to your music. To me, that's magic. And I don't know how you do it, but to me, that's one of the gifts and one of the themes I think that I see in your whole life. That's always kind of been there. And so, and music seems to be this kind of thread. You actually talk about music appearing as a guardian angel at one point early in your life, and I had this image of music kind of being this spiritual thread that kind of weaves those three themes together in really beautiful ways, and has also just been there from the beginning. So if it's okay with you, I'd like to kind of hop around to some different parts that sort of explore those themes. On page 4, there's the story of the frog, and for me, it kind of starts. It probably started earlier than that, but there's this instance of magic and music. You're a small girl and you're living in Arizona, and I believe, and you find this frog in the mud, and you pick it up, and it starts on studying the drop down at the top of the page there, Rickie, and if you could read from there down to anything seemed possible.
Sure.
That would be great.
Studying the drop down to the bottom of the well, I saw it was only about 10 feet. I let the frog slip from my hands into the well and said, "Water there, you can swim down there, be out of the sun." When I returned later and saw the frog dead, I looked up from that well and I was sore inside. I had killed that thing. I was inconsolable. There was nowhere to run from this feeling. That experiment was nothing like I had expected. Now I knew people could cause terrible harm, and even I could hurt an innocent thing. That it was an accident made no difference to me or the frog. "I'm sorry. I wish I had not put you down there. I wish I could take it back." It was here by the well I made up my first song. The song made its home in me, and I kept it there. I sang, I wish that wishes would come true, and then I know that it would be all right. God's little scientists want to know how things work, and sometimes, quite by accident, they find out the hard way. I was forging roads between my imagination and the world before me. The real frog died but I saved it in my first song. Out here in fairy kingdoms, anything seemed possible.
So yeah, I just think it's incredible that music is there right from the beginning. The real frog died, but I saved it in my first song. Was that the tune? Is that the tune that was?
I remember it. And
that's amazing.
It only had that one verse, but.
And I was thinking later in the book, there's a now that's a real well that the frog fell into. There's a metaphorical well that you talk about later in the book, and to me it kind of tied back to this this frog moment from your childhood. You're writing about the process of writing songs for the Pirates album, your second album, and you wrote that, having lost my gang, I had to dig some new characters out of my own imagination. I found them down, down, down at the bottom of a well.
I didn't even notice that.
I just love that. I mean, it's like this image of a wishing well. A dark well is a dark place, but it's a place where people make wishes, and sometimes they come true. And in fact, I even made a link to the earlier pre-Pirates. You have a section where you're talking about your showcase night at the Troubadour. And it's a big night where a lot of big wigs are out there, and agents and such. And you have a short set to kind of show them your stuff. And for your closing number, you chose to sing "When You Wish Upon a Star." Fate steps in. I don't know. Just to me, that just brought it back to this kind of wishing moment. And I don't know. You could even see the Troubadour night as being a wishing well opportunity, and it happened.
So when I wrote, I had written it and talked to my friend because I needed a little bit of help organizing it. I thought. He read the book and he said, "You have a wonderful book here. You have themes." And I said, "Really?" He said, "Oh yeah, magic is one of the themes. And if you'll edit the book now with the themes in mind, then it will take its own shape." Because I had so many stories that I had to find my way out of some of the stories. I knew I had too many. So you were totally right on with the magic thing. And I used it. And so maybe it delivered me to all these unconscious places that I didn't even know I did. Know that here are the themes I'm going to look for, and they delivered themselves. Because I didn't even see those connections.
Yeah, I love it. I want to go back to third grade. There's a section on page 30, if you would humor me. On page 30, there's this moment of incredible integrity that you show as a third grader. I have a second grader, so I hope he's listening. I think he is. And this is a moment where you've started to you've been singing, and your mother's known about your talent for a while, but your father's been away, and he comes back and is noticing now. And there's a show happening in town. So I wondered if you could read, starting at the very last paragraph with "Dad was so impressed," until on the next page, the middle of the page, until "I had one direction I could call my own."
Dad was so impressed with my natural entertainment ability. He took me to an audition for the Lou King Show, the local television talent show. They offered to hire me, but only if my parents bought an insurance policy from one of the staff there. My father was furious. Mother said they would find a way to pay for it if I really wanted to be on the show. And I said no. It was a huge grown-up decision to deny myself a chance to be on television and to have status in my lonely schoolyard hell. But this was the wrong time and the wrong place. and to accept the prize would hurt my parents. The Lou King show was my first lesson in the dark corridors of the music biz, where favors are exchanged and sins offered up as collateral. Of the many exercises in integrity I've achieved or endured or failed, this was my greatest. This performance would have served so many devils, least of all my ability to knock the song out of the ballpark. When performances are used to gain footing or used for any other thing than the purity of the performance, bad things happen. My choice to wait for a better opportunity was a turn of the dial of growing up. I went to sleep that night a little closer to my parents, for they came in a little closer to me. I knew too that I had something in my pocket now, made from doing the right thing. I had a compass of sorts, the one that comes to children who sacrifice their dreams for family. All around me, childhood was slipping away, but to my north, I had a dream. I had one direction I could call my own.
I just think, I don't know, for a third grader to choose to sense that was the better choice for your family versus your own, desire to be on a TV show. Come on, what kid doesn't want that? I just think that's remarkable.
I heard them talking in the front seat on the way back, and I could feel their indignation. And I knew, even though I, didn't know, but I knew it was, they worked all the time. And if they would have to work even more to pay these people for a thing we didn't need so that I could sing, that was just dead wrong. I was a good singer and I knew I was, and they should just give me a spot. Even as a little kid.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, if you don't mind skipping ahead again, to me, there's an incredible, I feel like on page 233, your mother kind of answers that moment in a really magical way of her own. That moment of you making that choice. This was very moving to me. This was a time when you're living in LA, and I think you're working for Rocky the Gangster, some kind of secretary or something. And you're having a lot of doubts about your career and having a hard time making some money, and thinking about kind of throwing in the towel as a musician. And your mom just comes through in the most beautiful way. On the middle of the page 233, the paragraph beginning with "I applied for unemployment insurance." Are you with me there?
I will. I want to tell you that sometimes it seems as if portions of destiny are like limbs of a tree, and you get on this limb and there's no getting off till you get to the next one. Could be a bad limb, could be a great one, but I began to feel like I had slipped into some kind of movement that was larger than myself. And I'd feel it and go, I'm on my way. And then a few days later I go, I'm not on my way. So it was a very tumultuous time, the 6 months before.
Yeah.
And inexplicably, out of my mother came words of destiny. This was not the only time. I was talking to her while I was making the first record, just a conversation, blah, 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 blah. And she said, la, 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 Coolsville, da, da, da. And I said, what did you say, Mother? And she said, Coolsville. And I said, I'm going to go now. I'll call you back.
I got to write a song now.
I got to write a song. I don't know. I think she thought I said Coolsville. So I always imagined the invisible world going, have her say Coolsville now, or the kid's never going to write this song.
Wow.
My mother was the voice for inexplicable wisdom so many times. And this was one.
Yeah, and if you can go from there all the way to the next page to braiding all around me on 234, that would be great.
Braiding to yeah. I applied for unemployment insurance and called my mother. Mom, I'm thinking about quitting music. I'm just not getting anywhere, and if it fails, I won't have any skills to fall back on. I can take this course to become a stenographer, and it doesn't take very long. Things have been going better, so when I fell further. It seemed as if they would never go my way. Getting closer to the mountain had made the mountaintop seem unreachable. What had I been thinking? Who did I think I was? You want to be a court reporter? Yeah, it pays pretty well. Sitting in a courtroom, I don't see you doing that. I don't want to be poor all my life. I thought my mother would think this was a good idea. I imagined her saying, Rickie, get yourself a backup job. But that was not what I heard. You wanted to be a singer. You've been working so hard at it. It's what you always wanted to do. I was worn down. I protested. I'm not going anywhere. Nobody loves me. I've got nobody. I've got no job and I'm lonely. And I don't know what to do. That's what those calls are like. Mm. She stood strong. She was always so strong. I know how you feel. I know you feel bad right now, but don't you give up on your dream. Mm. Maybe you'll be the one who succeeds. Don't you quit now. Don't give up without trying, Rickie. Mm. My mother, she was a mom from a long line of determined women who faced incredible adversity and was now reminding her daughter where she came from, where she was going. She kept me going when I wanted to set it all down. I guess it was the dark hour before the dawn. For even as I declared myself incapable, the threads of life were braiding all around me. Mm.
Yeah, I just think that's so moving, and to hear you read it as well. I think a lot of parents would say, "Great, stenographer, so yeah, something solid, like do it." But that your mother was like, "No, you're a singer. You need to."
I think at other times she had said, "What are you going to fall back on?" So that's why I thought she'd be pleased that I'd made the decision to, it's like an 18-month course or something. And I'd had luck because I'd been going out on job interviews and they'd sent me to an insurance firm to be what the heck would we call it? Not an adjuster, but some word I went, and I got called back a second time. What? I was, wow, I can enter the business world. You don't know, people like me were never invited into that world. I only had one good dress and I wore it both times. And, but they didn't hire me, but I'd gotten the idea that maybe I could get a straight job. So inexplicably, my mother said, don't you do that. You go for your dreams. Because so often we give up really at the crucial moment, because the crucial moment is the hardest. And we say, there's a glass of milk over there. I hear there's a glass of milk there, but I can't walk any further. And we don't give ourselves the happy ever after that's waiting right over there. You've come so far. Don't give up.
Right. There's another moment you describe in the book. This was earlier in your life when you had run away to Canada, and on the way back you ended up actually in juvie for a little while. When you got out, your parents were separate, but at that point, and your dad was in KC and was welcoming you, and your mom had said she didn't want you.
Yeah.
And yet, when you and your dad made your way to Washington State, she had thought to bring your guitar. And that really struck me, like that even in that, she wasn't saying like forever. No, she was whatever she was, but
forever. But people are complicated. You know, at the same time she's going, don't come back. She's got the guitar.
Yeah.
People are complicated, and even when they do make terrible choices, tomorrow they might make a beautiful choice. And the only way for me, anyway, to go forward is forgiveness, humility, but also understanding that I too have made terrible choices, but I've also made great ones. And that's who we are. I don't know if any parents, are great all the time, good all the time, even passable all the time. Sometimes we are fucks.
Yep. Yeah. So yeah, I thought that I was glad she brought the guitar.
I just think that the reason that word was in her vocabulary is because somebody had done it to her.
Mm-hmm.
They had taken her away from her mother. So that was in her emotional vocabulary.
Right. Yeah. And we're going to get to some of that in a little bit. I wanted to talk a little bit about your dad and your uncle. There's a section on page 75 when it seems to me like that you talk about first experiencing the fire of your Jones ancestry, and I love this section. This is a time, I think you're in 7th grade in Arizona, about 11 years old, and your mom and dad are having a hard time dealing with the aftermath of your brother Danny's accident, and then music arrives in the form of Uncle Bob. And so this little section starts at the second paragraph there. Then Uncle Bob came to visit, and just down to never let it go. If you wouldn't mind.
I wanted to tell you that I still have the tape from this session.
Whoa.
And we had to edit it because they were playing Honeysuckle Rose, and we didn't have time to clear it. But so we edited it, and you can hear it on the audio book at the very beginning of the book. You can hear some old, my dad goes, yeah, at the end. From this day.
Oh my gosh.
I describe here. And I have the whole cassette of that I hope to put out soon on something. That's so amazing to find that, because it was lost for so long.
Wow.
So am I starting from Uncle Bob came to visit?
Yeah, then Uncle Bob came to visit. Yeah.
And I'm ending at the end.
Just at never let it go on the same page.
Okay. Oh, great.
Yeah.
Then Uncle Bob came to visit all the way from Pomona. He left behind the Protestants and brought his guitar instead. I had only seen the Jones brothers sing together once before, so it was very exciting. A window into a whole other lifestyle. They knew so much about music. Bob played all the jazz chords and could translate a song into any key my father wanted. Their music revealed a language of intuition and lifelong jive, and it was more meaningful than any words of love or remembrance. They played like professionals, and I felt a depth, a thing between them, reiterating what it meant to be a Jones. This music spirit was different than the spirit in our house, and even the spirit between them when they spoke. When they sang and played, joy and comfort filled our sad little home. My Uncle Bob played guitar, and Richard sang Honeysuckle Rose, St. Louis Blues, and St. James Infirmary. The Jones brothers playing music again, laughing and enjoying themselves. Life would go on, wouldn't it? There, keep going.
Yeah, just that last little paragraph there. Yeah.
I experienced the fire of the Jones family's vaudevillian ancestry. I saw us and felt us as we truly were, not as we had become since the accident. Instead of her and him and her and me, it was us. Family. It felt so safe. I wished I could hang on to it and never let it go.
Mm. Yeah, that feeling of your vaudeville. Your grandfather was a vaudeville star, Pegleg Jones.
Pegleg Jones.
Did you ever meet him or
no?
No.
He died of tuberculosis. Both my grandfathers died of TB back in the 30s, I think, or maybe. I think grandfather died just before they were married, so probably in the 40s.
Okay. But I thought it's interesting because you seem to have a very, very deep connection with him. On page 90, you wrote, "I always claimed to have learned to sing from my daddy, but I suspect it was really Pegleg's oversized influence all along. His words, distilled through my father, taught me the craft of theater, from how to take a bow to how to love the stage and retain one's dignity while inviting critics and the public to judge you." I just think that's cool. You never met him, but you have that connection. What were the stories of him like, of his performances?
Well, there weren't that many stories of him. We had the notices, and so what the stories were putting on makeup, how many hours he spent getting into his character, what a great dancer he was, how he didn't, even though he used the peg leg to get the act and sell the uniqueness of the act, he didn't really like people referring to his leg all the time. And who would? He was a great dancer, and I often say my favorite review was, "This monoped puts most two-legged men to shame." I sort of think that's where they did reviews back then. No full-page pictures then. And I thought, there's so much respect in that review. There's no dissension. They respect him, and they say so. They probably know he'll never make it out of vaudeville because, when the movies came, it was a time of Cary Grant and stuff. But here's a star there in vaudeville.
Yeah. And you also say that your dad taught you by example to be an artist, and there seemed nothing I could not do or at least try when it came to creative studies.
Once that excitement was ignited in me, because my father was always painting or trying to learn the trumpet or playing the guitar. He was always when he wasn't working, he was always doing artistic things. Yeah. And so children learn instantly.
Yeah.
And I learned that was something I could be or do.
Yeah. Just made me think about all your different, just the expansiveness of your talking about your music a little bit, albums like going from Ghosty Head to Chain Austin to Pop. I want, just I can do it all. My dad could do it all. I could do it all. And
just music. It's the marketing people who subdivide it into genres to sell, because people see music as lifestyle or an extension of the place they want to, the kind of club, the kind of people they want to hang with. But musicians don't see it that way. And I mean, maybe punk rockers do, but forgive me for that, but all the developed musicians I knew, jazz or rock, love to play all kinds of music. Mm-hmm. And we don't only learn one kind of music. When we learn music, there's nothing we can't play. I was just thinking of doing doing a country version of, anyway, I forgot what it is, but I'm always thinking of trying to create something nobody has done yet, because that helps people grow in new directions and it keeps me interested in what I'm doing. So sermon, which was a pretty amazing. So when I started out, big success, pop music, right? Pop music, it was a very respected tradition. The great singers of the 50s were called pop singers, whether it was Billie Holiday was called a pop singer. Later, they differentiated pop from jazz. But so I felt I was in a great tradition of pop music. And I feel it going. I totally forgot the thread of where I was going, but it'll come back.
You were just talking about all the music you get to make, and nobody can stop you. So
Something else I'm going to say about pop music. Pop, sermon. Oh, I know. Yeah. So when I first went out on my own, I was locked into every nuance of the recordings. Had to play the solos that way.
I know.
I had to play everything that way. And if I accidentally played it different, I go, oh, where am I? So I set out to learn how not to, and I understand how you become that way. It's like dominoes. How to learn how not to depend on what had happened before in order to do what was going to come next. This is learning to play jazz. So I can sing it, but to play it, to be it, that's something else entirely. So my goal in the early 90s, I'd say, was to learn to improvise. I wanted to improvise a whole song, which I actually did in the Horde tour, but I wanted to develop this understanding between everybody on the stage that was so acute that we would know where we were going, and we didn't have to write it down, and we didn't have to prepare. We'd just get out there and do it. So my goal was to be able to improvise, and I come to my goal. When I did sermon, I put some books on some music stands like this in front of me. And Peter at Tanasoff had created some guitar drum tracks. And I said, don't play them for me. Play them now, and I'll make it up. And that's what I did with, for 1,000 years, whatever was I said. And
Lake Victoria, right.
The writings that I was looking on and making it up. So I got to pretty close to where I wanted to go. I would still like to do concerts where I'm improvising. I'm not rich, so it's not possible for me to do a tour in which I don't make money. But gosh, maybe people would love to come and see that. I always feel like they're expecting something, but
I think they would love it. I mean, I that's the sense I get sometimes watching your band when I've seen you live, is that they don't exactly know what song's coming next, and so they all gotta wait. And sometimes, the horse is at the piano now. I thought that was a guitar song. Nope, tonight it's here. And
there are some players who get so aggravated and unhappy and frightened on my stage that they quit quickly. But for the ones who are, because they're used to playing pop music, but for the ones who are courageous and will hook up with me spiritually, it's especially Mike Dillon, for the more courageous players, it's enthralling and thrilling to do it. We're like, I'm not going to say it's like sex, because it's not like sex, but it is like becoming one with somebody musically. You're
in the moment with them. You're just playing off them right in the moment. Yeah.
And we don't get to do that a lot in pop music, because if I watch, I'm not going to say any names, but if I watch, there are some people who are really great musicians, but they bore me to death because they're playing it. I already heard you do it that way.
Exactly. I mean, I love your recordings, but I cannot imagine coming to a show and hearing it exactly like it was on the recording. I would still go, but you know what I mean? It's
the first and people are expecting that the first tour solo's exactly the same, and then by Pirates I was starting to get bored, and
Yeah.
I was
Right.
trying to find a way to keep enjoying, what I did.
Yeah. Well, speaking of music, I want to talk a little bit about West Side Story, because that show, and I teach at a musical theater school, so I have to talk about West Side Story a little bit. But that goes all the way back to early childhood as well. Yeah, were you in third grade when you first saw West Side Story? And then it seemed like the Jet song became a kind of friendship initiation rite of passage for you. You would just start singing it, and if the people knew the words, they were your friends. And
it happened with Sal Bernardi and the African Queen, and then it happened again with the Tom Waits crew. So
amazing. And something's coming also seemed to be a song that became like a symbol of, I don't know, about your career really, and about your premonitions that you would have. I was interested in that passage in the book where you're at a friend's house thumbing through some records, and you came to a Randy Newman record, and you see, I have such a hard time saying this name, Lenny Waronker. It's hard to say that. Waronker. Lenny Waronker. Say that 10 times fast. Lenny Waronker, and you see his name, and you just get a premonition, a feeling inside, and he ends up, in fact, being your producer.
Yeah, premonition. So I'd had a couple, and I know what they feel like. And so when I looked at his name, I saw a desk. I felt me on one side of the desk. And I said, oh, I'm supposed to find this guy. This is the guy. That's my way in.
And yeah, you said it was as if the future had taken place.
Yes, exactly.
And there was another moment where you're about to, I think this was maybe earlier, you're about to sign with this guy, Bud Payne, to be a songwriter for $800 a month, which you...
Bud Payne.
Oh, sorry. Bud Payne. And you really needed the money. This was not a good time, and it was good money. And yet just at the moment of signing, again, you get this, I don't know if it was a premonition, but you get a feeling that, like, I think you said something like, if he will pay this, others will pay more.
Yeah.
And they did.
The feeling, but it's also out there in the ether because it's so powerful. It's as if to say, it was loud enough to stop my hand and say, don't do this. Something's coming. And it didn't feel the way premonitions are, but I think it was, in fact, yeah.
And I mean, to me, that's also an example of just having this kind of deep, not certainty, but faith, a kind of faith that without it being necessarily religious, but that something is coming, and I'm not certain, and I really need that money, but I'm not going to sign this. The voice is strong enough that I just have to say no. Incredible.
Yeah. And right after that, I did get really depressed because my unemployment was running out, and I didn't have anybody to love. And right around then is when I write, a month later, maybe, because I don't think I'd written Texaco yet. But I'm forgetting now. I'm glad I wrote that book because I forget what that means.
Can refer to it.
But right after that, and then Christmas came, and it was a really hard time. But then it broke. And Lowell came, and things began to putter forward, and then zoom.
Yeah, and I wanted to just there's a place on if you wouldn't mind skipping over to page 281. This is when you're finishing the recording of your first record, and to me, this was a moment that kind of combined all these themes that we've been talking about: integrity, your music, your family, magic. And this was the orchestra, and this was Christmas Eve night. And this was so, like, I don't know, just the way I don't want to give it away, but with your mother at the end here. But on page 281, you're talking about, it starts in the middle of the page with Nick DeCaro.
Nick DeCaro.
Nick DeCaro, sorry. And then on it would go to page 282, about the middle of that page, to end at forever this would be true.
Hold on a second. It was Nick DeCaro, and who was the other guy? The guy who wrote the theme to. Hold on, I just gotta because this. I'm telling you now that I fucked up with the name here. It wasn't Nick. It was the other. It was Johnny Mandel. So on the next version, we'll read the conclusion.
Second edition. Yeah.
I did that wrong. Nick's family are probably going, what? But it was Johnny Mandel, who was I mean, he was such a big guy. And I remember his hair, and he was way older than me. So let's say it instead of Nick, we'll say Johnny Mandel. Yeah. Johnny Mandel was so overcome by the song that he walked up to me in the control booth and gave me a big fat kiss. And I mean, he went, whoa. I think he's second tongue in my mouth. Russ Teidelman entered the room at that moment with Lenny and asked, what's going on? He said, I think Nick likes our girls singing. We giggled like kids. It was bizarre, but I suspect a sensitive musician like Johnny felt that energy that night. Should I keep going?
Yeah.
Yeah, we were running up against Christmas Eve union rules. 3 minutes left until we reached triple golden overtime pay for the 64 musicians and staff. That's the way to learn about the union. This is union time, overtime on a holiday. Triple it and then double that. I knew the folly of pushing any further. Wow, oh, union! So we needed to decide if we had night train. I paused, not wanting to rush into a bad take. But no, it was good. I whispered into the microphone, we are done. It's a wrap. Ralph corrected me. Look, Ralph's there. That's the only mistake I found as I was reading it and kept reading it. And then one day I went, oh. That wasn't it. Okay, so I walked out of I shouldn't have done that, huh? It's doubt is falling everywhere, but gosh, maybe it was Nick. No, I think it was. I walked out of the recording booth, and the orchestra applauded, slapping their bows and clapping their hands. They had remained the extra minute to offer me, a newcomer, that respect. My producers smiled like proud fathers. It was a bittersweet drive back to Santa Monica. I had not yet learned that every single moment, every accomplishment deserves a hallelujah and a smile to celebrate the here and now of it. That is like nowhere else. But when it's over, well, it's done. I didn't want it to be over ever. I didn't want it to ever be over. Called my mother. Ma, I finished my record. What are you going to call it? She asked. Rickie Lee Jones. Good, she said. Good. She said she was proud of me, and her voice was enough lullaby to allow me to sleep. I woke to the greatest Christmas gift imaginable. Oh my God. My dream had come true. I had completed my record. From now on and forever, this would be true.
Yeah.
Well, overwhelmed.
Yeah. No, I love that you called her, and I love what she said. Good.
Because you're so afraid of things slipping from your hand, you know. And each accomplishment, whether it was Lowell George recording the Easy Money, I went, now this is, and it can never not be. Nothing else happens. You did this. And so each thing at that point I was counting. And now you've done this.
Yeah.
And now I'm doing this.
Yeah. 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 I have,
I know you do, but we're 6:55. Shall we
Exactly.
ask a question or two?
Sure. Yeah. What a pleasure.
You're so respectful and so kind. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you, Rickie.
I hope I get to come and visit you at that fantastic school.
Yes, please. Yes, please. Come to Boston, please.
Let's see these questions. What do we got? Sorry. You remount. Oh, there's one for you. You can ask in just a second.
Are there lull stories in the book? Yep.
Yeah. Company has gotten me through. Was there a specific person or event that inspired the song Company? And I'll do one more. Well, Company was inspired by something that was certainly not worthy of the depth of the song that we wrote. My friend Ivan left me to go up with his girlfriend in Oregon. And I had this job working for this gangster and had a lot of time on my hands. So and he had a new IBM typewriter and I love the sound of it. So that was where I wrote that. And I actually think it was probably inspired by Jimmy Webb. I know you'd be hard pressed to find that connection, but if I thought about it, Jimmy Webb and just as it begins and then it goes off somewhere else. But what made it brilliant was working with Alfred Johnson, who, what a night that was writing that song. And, it was our blood. It was our blood on the page. But
is Alfred still around?
Oh, yeah. His picture's in the book and he's he's still around. And I worked on the book for 7 years. I'm going to answer this question. Are there any covers of your songs that you particularly love? Very few people have covered my songs that I know of. I know a Scottish band did Sailor Song. Diane Reeves, I think, did Company. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. I love those too. Daryl Braithwaite did The Horses in Australia. It's like an anthem down there. It's huge. And his cover is enthusiastic. It's in the same key, but they use a guitar, and I don't know, it just resonated with the people so deeply. So that's good, but I don't know if I've heard anybody sing one of my songs and said, I understand the song now. It would just take me hearing, more people doing it because they just nobody comes near them.
Would you like them to?
I would love them to. When I was first starting, I heard a Paul Simon song in the grocery store and went, that's what I want. I want my music to be so familiar with people that they don't even know they're hearing it. And for a minute that did happen. They put my music on Muzak without my permission. So you got your wish, and then you made them stop. But yeah, there's something wonderful about the songs being so familiar to people and everybody. Now I think I'd like that. I love it when. I want people to partake and I want to be part of the world. I've been, I know I'm unusual and the songs are a little unusual, but I really did offer them to the whole wide world. So I'd love to hear them. We want your songs in the grocery store too. Are you there at TJ Maxx? Because I'm always wanting, this says, I seem to hear your songs at TJ Maxx. I'm always wanting to know who creates those playlists because I have such diverse material. Surely there's a place for something I wrote. So And we got one. Oh shit! I left the page. I'm back. I clicked to order another book.
Oh,
We should say goodnight now, I guess, because we're coming to the end.
Lila, do you appear? There's Lila.
This has been so wonderful. Seriously, thank you so much for sharing this evening. I think everybody in the audience would agree that this has just been so special. So, Doug, thank you for moderating tonight. Rickie, thank you for joining us. This is so wonderful. And again, I just want to remind anybody that if you do want to pick up another copy of the book, you can do so. It's here at this green button below me. And also, a few people mentioned in the chat how much they enjoyed the audiobook, which is read by Rickie Lee Jones. So that's pretty special as well. I also put a link in the chat. You can purchase an audiobook from Libro FM, which supports independent bookstores like ours. So again, thank you everybody for being here. And I hope one day we can do it in person in Boston. And, you know, that's the dream. It's coming all back. So soon, one day.
I'm looking forward to the bookstore tour. So maybe we can still do it. Do it, y'all.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody. Night.